So please be advised that the lecture is being recorded. And like I said, in the first day of our class, the whole lectures are recorded, and we have posted them on Moodle for you to access. So you can just go on Moodle and just click on any of the link for the recorded lectures. For my lectures, for instance, I linked it to YouTube. So once you click on it, it will take you to a YouTube link where you can download the lectures, or you can just watch the lectures, anyone that works best for you. Either you want to watch it on YouTube or you want to download it. So that you can do for the lectures. So good morning, everyone. How have you been? How have you been? How has been the class thus far? Any feedback? I want to share the screen for today's lecture. Any feedback thus far on, has it been okay? Are the concepts, I suppose the concepts are not foreign to you guys. You are familiar with most of what is being raised and all that. Any comments? Yes, Zandile.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
On my side, for now, I'm fine. Like the class that we attend on Tuesday, everything was clear, but I still have to go through to the notes. So far, I'm good.
Okay, that's all right then. Thank you very much for that feedback. Can I hear from maybe one or two more persons before we go to what we need to do today? Any other person, have you been fine? Is there any challenge you think we need to address? Anything that we need to touch on before we continue?
Morning, Prof, and morning, colleagues. On my side, I think everything was laid out clear on the first day, although maybe I had a problem because I couldn't really concentrate in the afternoon class because of certain reasons. But otherwise, from what I got on the day, I think I'm sorted. I just need to go back to my notes again and just check everything. If ever that I encounter a problem or I need clarity, I think I'll then come back to you for more info. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Lindewe, you're about to say something.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think the session was very informative, and of course, we're in a position to understand what made our project to fail at times, and of course that we need to understand in terms of the key knowledge areas in a project, and also understand its importance, so that at least the project is a success. I think, and also be in a position to make sure that you critically identify the risks that are identified, and also you analyze in terms of the impact that the risk has in terms of failure of your project or the success of your project. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that contribution, and for all the contribution thus far. Thank you very much. Like I told you in the first day, the idea is for us to move together. It's a concept of all for one, one for all, and to ensure that nobody is left behind. So I don't mind if there were things that we need to revisit. We quickly revisit them, and to also know, to just check up on you guys to know if there are any challenge that we need to quickly work on. So some of things maybe we are not aware. But yeah, like I said, the lecture is available online. It's on YouTube already. So you can just click on the link on Moodle to take you to the lectures. They are recorded. You can listen to the lecture again. And the beauty of a recorded lecture is the fact that you can practically fast forward to sessions in which you want to listen to. And then you can also keep rewinding on the same particular session to get more ideas. And then most of these things, I'm also glad that there are things that you guys are familiar with. Some of you already are on the field. You're already working on 1 or 2 projects and the like. So this is just, like I said, the first day, doing the theory of the practical, most of you are already familiar with, right? So today what we are going to be doing is apply technology and project documentation. In essence, what we'll be doing today is it relates to everything that you have discussed from day one and everything you'll be discussing after today. Does that make sense? Everything you have discussed and everything you'll be discussing after today, this session is relevant for it, right? So that's why technically it's like in the middle of the whole session itself. So it's relevant for the beginning and the ending, because we're talking about what are the technologies, what are the tools, quote and unquote, that you need to ensure the success of your project. And so that we will discuss. What are those things that when we talk about technology, they are those things that make our jobs easier. Now, globalization and the advancement in these tools makes our job easier as compared to some 10 years ago, some 20 years ago, and some 30 years ago as it is. Even as of last year, some 1 year ago. So this technology makes job easier. And when we come to documentation too, we'll be looking at why do we have to do all this, right? And just as a snapshot, we always say that for us to, if we don't, I don't know if you're familiar with the saying that says the history that is not known it will repeat itself. History that is not known is bound to repeat itself, right? What do you think that implies? Let me put it out there. Even if you've not had that before, if somebody comes up to say, maybe your sibling, your younger sibling, or your kids come to ask you the meaning of that, what do you think that implies? In relation to project management, history that is not known will repeat itself. What does that imply? Hello, people. What does that imply?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will say, hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. I will say that if you had some challenges in trying to execute one of the projects, and then you never dealt with them effectively, or maybe you ignore to resolve those challenges. So that means that in future, when you are dealing with another project, those challenges can still come, and you will fail again to resolve them.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any other addition? This particular saying covers everything we want to discuss today, or the essence of the session. Yes, go ahead. We practically cannot hear you. Kenta Kumalo.
Get the question.
We can't hear you. Can you repeat yourself again?
Yes, Professor. I lost you when you were asking a question.
Okay. I said that, how can you relate, or how do you explain this saying that say history that is not known, right, will repeat itself? Let me write it down in this session here. How do you explain this? I'm going to type it now. Okay. So how do we explain this in relation to project management? Did you get it now, guys? Any contribution? Your network is we practically cannot hear you, Kumalo. I think your network is okay. Why Kumalo try to sort out his network? Maybe you just change your maybe you just move around or something. I don't know how we'll fix your network. We can't hear you. Any other contribution? Maybe Kumalo will come up subsequently.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Tolakele.
Though my network is bad, but I think when saying that, history unknown is bound to repeat itself. They said if you encountered challenges in the project and you didn't solve them, it will come back again if you don't solve those issues or those challenges that you've encountered in the first project. Thank you.
That was the same thing. The other that was the same thing that has been said now, right? But I want other opinion. What other side can you see to it? What you said is correct, though. A problem that is not a challenge that is not solved in a particular project will repeat itself. Yes. Any other inspiration, to put it that way? This is very, or let me give you a clue. This is practically in relation to project documentation.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
My contribution will be, I think it is very important to have a closeout report after you have completed the project, whereby you indicate your achievements and you indicate your challenges and also provide a solution for, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That sums it up. You should be able to tell a story when it comes to project management. You must be a storyteller. That's practically what it is. From the beginning, from the start of your project to the end, to the closure of your project, you must be a storyteller. And the idea of storytelling in project management falls to this saying: history unknown is bound to repeat itself, right? Because you must be able to tell us your success, your failure, why you succeeded, why you failed, what worked for you, why did those things work for you, what did not work, why is it that those things did not work, all these are essential in the sustenance of a project, especially when it comes to a long-term project. Because in most cases, you may not be there, right? You may be involved in a project today, and especially most of us that work in political offices, we know this, right? Today you have a mayor, tomorrow that person is gone, and possibly you too, your department will be changed, and then a new set of people comes in to that particular department, new set of people with authority. If they are not aware of what has transpired in that particular office, what happened? They will repeat the same mistake you've repeated. But if there are documentations as relating to those projects, they will know not to do some things, because some things may be obvious. You may feel that if I add 1 + 1, 1 + 1 on default will give me 2. I know that. Everybody knows that. It's a universal fact that 1 + 1 will give me 2. But when it comes to projects, because projects are relative, projects are dependent on the environment in which it happens. 1 + 1 may not give you 2. 1 + 1 may give you 11. 1 + 1 may practically be 11 in the particular environment you find yourself. So if you document the fact that, okay, I tried 1 + 1 and it is actually 11, not 2. When a new project manager comes in, or a new project team comes in to do the same thing, they know well not to do 1 + 1 = 2, because they will have learned from your errors to know that, okay, this doesn't happen this way. So basically, this is just a teaser for us to now move into what we want to do today. And like I said, the discourse today is on what? Project applied technologies and project documentation, right? Applied technology and project documentation. Okay. So another thing again I want us to quickly talk about, like I said, I told you guys already in the first class that the session is as much as possibly a discussion, and it is not a one-way traffic. So look at the quotes we have here. It said efficient project management requires more than good planning, right? It requires that relevant information be obtained, analyzed, review in a timely manner. Why? Why? Why do you think that should be the case? Contribution, guys.
I can
Yes,
you
go
hear
ahead.
me?
I think we can hear you now. Go ahead, Kumalo, we can hear you now.
Okay, thanks. And sorry about that, Prof and colleagues. My network is troubling me today. From my taking, I think before one does a project, whatever, a project manager and his or her team needs to sit, then say, look at the projects that were done before, either with them or without them. You then have to sit down with your team, look at how the project, was a project successful or not. If it was a success, then you then look at what made that project a success. What improvements would you have done if you had more than enough time to do those improvements? Those are the part of analysis that one needs to do even before you do a project, because that data collection that was done during the first project that you look at will then guide you towards what needs to be done when and how. If ever, say, you have 4 months to do a project, and your previous projects you had 2 months, but it was a success, you then look at what made it a success in a short period of time, maybe apply that skill as well, so that it can give you enough time if ever that you are encountering problems along the way. So it's very ideally wise that you look at previous tournaments, or you look at previous documents in relation to what was done before the project that you want to do, review it, and you then set goals in terms of the time that you have allocated and so forth. That's my thought. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. That's beautiful. That is and very in-depth too. Yeah, any other contribution? One or two more before we continue. Efficient project management requires more than good planning, right? It requires that relevant information be obtained, analyzed, and reviewed in a timely manner. Why? Why do you think that should be the case?
Morning, Doc.
Yeah, go ahead.
According to my experience with projects management, once the project is initiated, planning is very essential so that you know what resources you have, the objectives of the projects, the beneficiaries of the projects, and the time frame. The time frame assists us in knowing exactly when the project will start and when the project will end, and if the objective will have been met by then. So I think that is it. That is why it is very important that the planning team analyze the information and puts a set time for each project to be implemented.
Okay, thank you very much. That's beautiful too. Any other one before we continue? One more person that want to explain that, maybe you using your experience and the likes. Efficient project management requires more than good planning, right? The implication here is that first and foremost, what we have been emphasizing, especially from the beginning of the session, is that there has to be a plan. For you to have a project, there has to be a plan. You must have your milestones from the initiation of the project. You must have your targets. You must have your audience, like Lindwai will just raised now. You must have all these things, but we said it requires more than that, right? There is a need that information as it comes up are analyzed in a timely manner. The implication is you don't want to leave some data, some events, once they happen, you don't want to leave it for tomorrow. Like something happened today and you say, you know what, we are going to document it tomorrow. You may just forget to document it. Or by the time you want to document it, some relevant information will have been missing. Possibly you have forgotten those information, or you cannot recall those information. So for that reason, it must be obtained. You must analyze it at that time for you to know, okay, where are we? Why is this thing happening? And then it also must be reviewed. Once you have analyzed, you must review it in relation to where you are going. And it goes back to the saying that we have here. History unknown is bound to repeat itself, because if you don't know, if it's not documented, it's not reviewed, it becomes an issue. And this is the why, the reason why projects must be analyzed, reviewed in a timely manner. Information that are obtained must be analyzed and reviewed in the timely manner, because first, it provides early warning for pending problems. Because in most cases, you can only say, okay, this is a proposal. This is what we want to do. This is where we are starting and this is where we hope to end. But what will happen in the course of doing those things, you don't know. They are unknown, right? And once information are reviewed at early stage, you tend to kill the problem in its bud before it metamorphoses into a big problem that can affect the project in itself. So once each information is reviewed as at when it comes, you avoid big problem that will have grievous impact on your project. And yes, you may start with a particular solution, and if it is reviewed over time, you may realize that, okay, this solution will not work. You go for what? For alternate solution, all right? So like we said, in every project, remember we've discussed this. Max also discussed all these things with you guys. The relevance of project activities, the milestones, as well as the deliverables. The implication of that as against project constraint, that's the nexus, the link between project components and project constraint, right? You know your activities, you know your milestones. I remember we said milestones are your targets. You want to say in the next 6 months, this is where we want to be. In the next 10 months, this is where we want to be. This is what we must have achieved. In the next 1 year, this is what we must achieve. Remember our project on crop training. I think it's crop training, right? The one we came up with in the first day. Crop what? Can you guys remember? I know it has to do with crop something.
Crop production.
Yeah, crop production. Good, thank you very much. Right? You know, remember we said that, okay, because of unemployment in KZN, we want to train 500 youths on crop production. And we said that in the next 6 months, we are hoping that we have trained 100. In the next 1 year, we are hoping that we have trained 200, right? This is our milestone. There are activities that have to go on into it. In the course of the work, we now start asking ourselves, have we achieved those deliverables, right? And then we also look at that in relation to what is our time frame, what is the scope of the project, and what is our budget, right? And if this data as they come are analyzed over time, then we avoid problem, because over time we may just come to realize that we cannot actually train 100 based on our budget. So for that reason, what do? We realign, we analyze, then we realign our objectives. Okay, fine, let us not beat more than we can chew. Now let us go for 50. Now we can train 50. Within our time frame, we can train 50, right? And or better still, we may say, okay, you know what? We have a lot of budgets. We can train more than 100 based on our progression, the way we are going. So for that reason, let us increase our scope, right? Let us target training 200. So basically, these are the things in which we must be familiar with when we discuss projects. So when it comes to project documentation, documentation happens from the beginning of your project to the end of your project. That is the essence of the whole discourse we are having. When we talk about documentation, in most cases, we think that, okay, we only document at the end of the project. We only say, okay, this is what we have achieved. This is the success. This is the failure. It goes back to the saying we have here, the word that ends in timely manner. Information obtained, analyze, and review on a timely manner. So for you to review information on a timely manner, at each stage of your project, information must be analyzed, right? It must be obtained and analyzed at each stage of your project, from the initiation stage to the planning stage, to the execution stage, to the control stage, as well as what? The closure stage. Your information needs to be documented at all these points. At the initiation stage, you talk about what? The appointment of a project manager and the project team. You need to document that. You need to talk about the definition of your goal. What is your project goal? That needs to be written. That needs to be available. It should not be assumed, right? Who are going to be your target audience? Who are your customers? What is your visibility? Visibility are studies of the project itself. In the planning stage, you are looking at what is the risks. You look at your risks. What are the SWOT analysis, like we talk about, right? You look at the SWOT analysis is what are the risks, what are the opportunity, what are the strengths, and the likes. You look at that, both internal and external, right? You create the schedule and plan. That is where you start talking about your activities and your milestone. You create that. You definitely will have to set a budget, right? No project will happen without a budget, right? The budget itself may not be capital. It may be that, okay, you said, okay, in this project, because it is voluntary, we are going to work on people that we provide voluntary services. You still have to make plans that's relating to that. And then what is going to be your communication process? How do you work on your communication process? Who is reporting to who? I think we raised this in our first class. Who is reporting to who? Who is responsible for reporting what? All these things needs to be set in your planning stage. You must have documented, okay, Mr. A is supposed to document this, Mr. A is supposed to report on activity A, and it's responsible for activity B, C, D, stuff like that. And then the execution phase too, the same thing goes in the execution phase. There has to be status updates, and you need to determine what is the frequency of your status update. Will it be daily? Will it be weekly? Will it be monthly? Will it be annually? That has to be on ground, and then that has to also be carried out at all points. You must compare the plan. This is where you look at both your, when we talk about comparing your plan versus your actual progress. Quickly, let me ask on that. What does that imply? What do we imply by comparing plans and actual progress? What does that imply, and how do you do that? Hello, people. What does that imply? Are you guys still with me? Am I speaking to myself now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are here.
Okay, so what does that imply in the execution phase on documentation when we say you must compare your you must compare your plan versus the actual progress? What does that imply?
Yes, Doc.
That's
I
why you
think
do your performance review.
Can you say that again?
That's why you do your performance review to check if whatever you have planned is being executed. Are you achieving goals?
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that. Yes, Cindile, you're about to say something?
Thank you. I was saying that sometimes you need to, you compare what was planned to achieve, and also you check the current status or the current progress. What is it that you managed to do in order to achieve what you planned to do?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Basically, that is what it implies, right? This is where you do the review itself, the performance review, as relating to your plan and actual progress. We've told ourselves we want to train 100 people in 6 months, right? 5 months down the line, we want to ask ourselves, how many people have we trained 5 months down the line? Or better still, even in 6 months down the line, how many people have we trained at this point? Have we been able to train the 100 as planned, right? And so that's what we want to look at that space. Have we been able to train 100 as planned? Okay, so what happened? Why is it that we were not able to train 100? What has transpired? So these are where you look at all these things. And then it is when you have looked at your plan, you do the review at that space whereby you've done that. That will lead you to, okay, what can we do to do more, right? How do we improve our progress continuously and the likes? So that's what you look at that point. And then also in the control, you look at the control scope script, right? What is happening when it comes to that? Who is involved in the control process? And what are the implications of that, right? What is the effect of that within the entirety of the project? Has that been efficient when it comes to the responsibility and the likes? The responsibility you have given to people, has that been efficient? Has there been proper communication between those that are in charge, right? You look at your management, change of management processes too, right? If there are the control system has been floppy, right? How do you ensure the change of button and the likes? What is the performance itself, performance tracking and the likes? What is the quality of management quality and the likes? These are the things in which you look at the control. Your control and your execution, they work hand in hand. They are within the course of the project, at the peak of the project, or at the heart of the project is the execution as well as the control. If the control is floppy, then the execution itself will also be floppy, right? So these two work hand in hand, and there's a need to be careful to look into this as much as possible. And then we talk about the closure. When the project ends, what are the lessons that have been learned? What is your you write out your project reports, the project delivery, and then the project close out and the likes. So these are the things in which you do at all these stages. These are different stages. There are more to this. You can come up with as many stages when it comes to your documentation. But these are phases. These are important sections in your project that are significant, that you must be aware of as you carry out a particular project, from the initiation to the closure stage. These are things that you must look at, and these are things in which you must report on, you must document in the course of your project. So, like we said, we've practically explained what project documentation is in the course of all these many explanations. This is just putting words to it. When we talk about project documentation, we're talking about recording in details all the activity of a project from its initiation to its closure. That is what it implies, to ensure a holistic engagement for a successful project, right? It is recording all these activities. That is what documentation, as the word implies, to document. To document is what? Is to record. So we can just say project documentation, project recording. That's what it implies. The compilation of all the documents and the actions, right? Your milestone and deliverable. That's basically what it implies, right? All the activity, the project activity, the compilation of the entirety of the project activity and the project results, right? That is what you do here. You catalog significant new learnings that have evolved as a result of the project. Basically, that is the essence of project documentation. It goes back to my first slide when I said history unknown is bound to repeat itself. To avoid the repetition of history, we do what? We document. We document all our activities, all our new learning, and the like. So basically, this is what it's all about, right? And take note of the last point I put down there. It said it is the process, project documentation process outlined a clear approach for organizing those essential project documents. And this essential project document is what we have in this space, right? Okay. So why do we need project documentation? We have discussed this. We've raised this in the course of our explanation, right? We need project documentation because, one, it creates more visibility, right? You can trace the entire process, the entire workflow can be traced, right? That's why I said, remember I said, as a project manager, you must be a good storyteller, right? Somebody can pick up your documents of your project and we can visualize what has transpired in your project. Your daily activities can be visualized, right? It gives us a clear picture of what has transpired, the stakeholders of your project. It gives everybody a clear picture of what has transpired, the entire workflow. Even if I'm not involved in your project, from the documents I can see. So that's one important reason or importance, the importance of project documentation. It ensures that project requirements are fulfilled. It is easy for us to lose focus, right? When we are on the field. And you can agree with me that in most cases, we say that this is what we want to do, right? when you go to the field, you end up doing a different thing, right? You end up doing a different thing. And then at the end of the day, you now, when you look at your project objective and your deliverables, you realize that there are two different things that you have done entirely. Why? Because in most cases, people do not go back to review the events as they happen. And in reviewing the events, you are going back to your objective. Okay, what have we set out to achieve? What are we achieving, right? But with documentation, daily documentation of what you have, you can easily, like I said, stop a problem before it escalates into an impact that will affect the entire, the credibility or the integrity of your project. So it ensures that the requirements of the project are fulfilled, right? It also improves performance and general productivity, right? For two reasons. One, for that particular project, because it is documented, the performance of that project is increased because people are conscious. The team is conscious of the fact that every action and inaction are documented. That is for that particular project. And then for subsequent projects, it's also save time, right? And also ensure, that's another point actually. We can raise that as another point, that it saves time. And then, but as relating to improvement of performance, you can dwell on what has transpired in the past for you to better perform in that particular project, right? If from documentation, we know that, like I said, the mathematical calculation I gave now, the resources that we use, and it saves resources. That's another point to look at. It may not be a point I raised there. It also saves resources, because now the time I'm going to use to do the calculation 1 + 1 is equals to 2 will have been avoided, because I know that in the last project, 1 + 1 was not equals to 2. 1 + 1 was equals to 11, right? So you see, when I come to this project, how will it improve my performance? Because now I'll just go to, I know 1 + 1 is equals to 11. So I'm going to be building on 1 + 1 equals to 11. So I know that 2 + 2 will definitely not be 4. 2 + 2 is likely going to be 22. You get the idea? So it flows on this graph. It improves your performance and then improves your productivity, because now you will have saved time, right? You will have saved resources. And if you have saved time and resources, remember our discourse on project constraint, you will have saved your costs, you will have saved costs and time, which implies that the scope also will have been improved upon. So you see, your productivity skyrockets. And then we'll talk about the fact that it improves, provide relevant and up-to-date information for quick decision making. You are familiar with this. As long as these documents are, you have the document, you can look at your trend. You know the decisions that needs to be carried out. And then ensures familiarization of the project by all stakeholders. Everybody involved is familiar with the project. The team are familiar with the project. The community is familiar with the project. Your superiors, your projects, your program managers are familiar with the project. The organization itself is familiar with the project. Your funders are familiar with the project, because everything is documented, right? And then evaluate the projects once it is finished. So these are some of the reasons why we document our projects, right? You can come up with many more, right? So when it comes to project documentation, it is important for us to also understand these phases that we raise here. We've established the fact that your project, you must document from the start to the finishing, right? And then what are you supposed to do at the planning stage? What are you supposed to do at the testing stage? What must you do at the end user documentation phase, as well as the handover phase? These are the documents that are required. These are the things in which you must do. At the planning stage, high level requirements, you must, there has to be project design at that place, right? detailed requirements and the design documents are required at the planning stage. These are what you need. So in that place, what you'll be asking is, you have to describe what the system will do or what the system should do, because it's at the planning stage. This is like the proposal implementation stage. At that place, you are going to ask, what is the system supposed to do? What exactly is what's the project all about? And what do you intend to achieve? That's basically what is at the planning stage. And then you ask yourself, remember in our first class, we said that if the project is a problem, right? It's where you are and where you want to be. So at the planning stage, you say, okay, this is where we are, and this is where we want to be, right? Now that is the what. And then you have to ask yourself, what is the how? How do we move to where we want to be, right? So that you design the activity itself. So how will the system do it? First, what will the system do? Second, how will the system do it? And in this case, what is your project all about, right? How do you intend to achieve your objective, right? So these are the things in which you look at in this place. And the next stuff is on your testing, right? The test plan, test documentation. Also, you ask yourself, how do you test? And what do you test? In this sense, what exactly are you going to be? That's when you look at, when we do the program review, like we said, the project review as it is. What are you testing? How will you test it? When will you know? At what time are you supposed to test? Remember, we said it may be that you are testing daily, you are reviewing your activities daily or weekly or monthly. In the review of those activities itself, how will you do the review? Right? So these are some of the things in which you look at that phase. And then the next phase, your end users documentation. That is also significant. Here you do your system documentation. You talk about installation guide, what are the manual, the user manual, and the likes. So these are things in which you look at that place. The installation guide is more of an internal documentation. The user manual is for the end users, the community. When we discuss community projects, for instance, the community itself, how will they be involved? What are they supposed to do, right? So this is where you do it. The whole organizational structure and the likes, the sequence, how do we go about it and the likes is designed at this space, right? And that's what you do at this place. And then at the end of the day, after the whole activities has been done, then we talk about the handover stage, where you prepare your final report. It goes back to this particular slide in which we have discussed, from the initiation to the closure. Are we fine? Am I too fast or we are okay?
We find Doctor.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. Yeah, I just remember now. Please make sure that you write your name and student number on the comment section as your class attendance, right? Let's not forget to do that. Your name and student number on the comment section. I hope to remember again before the end of the class, right? Please make sure you do that. Your name, student number on the comment section. So when you are designing, when you are doing your documentation, there are questions you must ask yourself. So these are some of the questions you must ask yourself when designing a project. Sorry, when you are doing your project documentation. And please be aware that this is not exhaustive. This is not, the list is endless. There are a lot of questions you must ask yourself when you are doing your documentation, especially at the beginning of your documentation. Before you start documentation, you must ask this question. And like I said, there may be more than this. First, you ask yourself, what are the goals? What is the goal of the project? Right? What is the goal of the project? What do you intend to achieve at the end of the day? Remember, it goes back to the first stage, what we say, where we are and where we want to be, right? So where do you want to be? Which is your goal of the project? And then you ask, as a project like this been completed in the past, within your organization, within the environment in which you find yourself? Has this kind of project been achieved, completed in the past? Because again, you don't want to repeat what has been done in the past, and you don't want to do it the same way it has been done in the past, right? Because what will have transpired is that you will have succeeded in wasting resources when you are doing the same thing over and over again. So we ask ourselves that question: has that project been done in the past? If it has been done in the past, were there recorded documents that we can look at? Are there archival documents that you can look at for future use? Because if the project has been done and there are documents for that particular project, you will know what to do and how to improve on what has been done, so that we don't repeat the same thing over and over again. So these are questions in which you ask. And then, is there a standard project methodology that needs to be followed? Right? We are familiar with this. There are projects that require a particular standard. There's a particular method you must follow. You cannot avoid those methods, right? And there are projects that what transpire is dependent on what you find in the field. You may tell yourself that this is what you want to do. When you get to the field, you end up doing a different thing. These are projects that the structure are fluid. They are not rigid, right? They are flexible, right? So you must know the project you want to do and ask yourself, is this project flexible or is it rigid? And then once this is done, when it comes to documentation, you must ask yourself what technology, this is where the technology comes to play, right? First, we have been discussing everything as relating to why document a project and what are the things you need to document. So this is the first time we're talking about technology now. You ask yourself, what is the technology that is required for you to document that particular project? And we'll talk more on that, on technology. And technology are coming up every day. Different technology to ease our work when it comes to the implementation of projects and the documentation of projects. They are coming up every day. So you must ask yourself which is suitable. Not every technology is suitable for your project. And not every technology, even if it's suitable for your project, is suitable for every document you want to carry out. For instance, I will not expect that you want to document your budgets, for instance, and you want to use Microsoft to document your project. First, that's going to be very tedious, right? Is it achievable? Yes, but the likelihood of error is high when you use Microsoft Word to document your project when you want to do the budget, right? So that is the same thing applies when you are doing a project, for instance, that involves say architecture, right? And you are involved in and you want to do a particular design, and then you want to do it on paper. Maybe you want to just design it with your hands, or you want to again use Microsoft Word to design to design the building, for instance. Maybe you have to come up with a blueprint of a particular building you want to do or something. And then you see, you need to ensure that you're using the right technology for the right documentation. So that is also important. So you must ask yourself, what's the technology you must use? Another thing I did not raise here on technology is that you must ask yourself, who is competent? What is your competence level, your knowledge level as relating to the use of that particular technology, right? If you are not competent to use that technology, who is competent to use the technology? If nobody is competent to use the technology in your organization or in your project, then you must also ask yourself, how do we get training for that particular technology? So these are questions that comes under technology. Like I said, these questions are not they are not exhaustive. I just came up with few questions that you will ask. You must ask yourself. And then, like I said, who are the key resources required for your project? Who are the stakeholders? What is the key resources? Who and what must be answered? Who do you require for your project? For the success of your project, who do you require? Right? This is fundamental. You must ask yourself this. And then what is the budget for your project? In documentation, the beginning of your documentation, you must ask this: what is the budget, right? How much is required for us to move from where we are to where we want to be? How much? What is the cost? What is the financial implication of that? And then we go back to again to the budget constraint. We have talked about the cost, which is the budget. How long do we need to achieve that particular project? Like we said, the project must have a beginning, a definite beginning, and a definite end. So for that reason, if there's going to be a definite beginning and a definite end, we must ask ourselves, what is the time frame? What is the time frame? What is the timeline, right? At that point of timeline, we are looking at the timeline as relating to the entirety of the project, as well as the timeline as relating to the milestones, right? Each stage of that project, how long do we need for each stage, right? That needs to be cleared at the beginning of your project documentation. And then communication is also key. What communication is needed in your project? What is going to be the channel of communication in that project? So under communication, we are talking about the communication required, the channel of communication, frequency of communication. All these are required. Who is responsible for communication, right? All these are required in at the beginning of your project. So these are very important questions you must ask when you start a project. And as much as possible, I'm going to be posting on Moodle a question as relating to this that we're going to discuss. We're going to have a discussion forum on Moodle, and we'll play around this. Like we say, we don't have time in the course of this session to do the class activities. So I'm going to place the class activity as a discussion forum on Moodle, and then we can just comment on all these things. Outside this question that we have asked, what other question are you supposed to come up with, and why, in the beginning of your documentation process? So these are the things in which we'll post it on Moodle, and then we'll pick it up on Moodle as a discussion forum. Please look out for that. Okay, so what are the essentials in project documentation? What are the essentials, right? When we talk about essentials in project documentation, we're talking about those things that are important, those things that must come up, right? You cannot do without them when we discuss project documentation. You must have something as relating to all these things, right? The first is your project proposal. That's the first thing. And the entirety of what this question that we raise here we reflect in your project, in your project proposal. It has to reflect there, because that is the only reason why your stakeholders will want to be involved in your project, because they have a picture of your project, they have the picture of your time frame, they have a picture of your costs and the likes. And in your project proposal, which also refers as a business case, right? You provide justification. You must motivate for why. So you see, you must motivate for why the problem is important, because there are a lot of problems, right? So we must motivate for why is the problem important? Why must we look at the problem, right? Why must we look at the problem now and not next year, right? And then who will be involved? How will they be involved? The cost and the likes, and who are the likely sponsors? And so all these things are involved in what? In your project proposal. The economic visibility, all those things are involved. And then there's always what? The project charter, right? In the project charter, that's where you are formally authorized to execute that particular project. That's the authority for the project is given, and then now you can execute that particular project. And in the project charter, these are some of the things in which are important in that project charter. First, the scope of the work, right? What are the requirements, your timeline, your budgets, the resources, definition of what's done, right? How do you know your deliverables? And then what are the project success factors? These are important points that must be involved in your project charter. And then you talk about your RACI metrics. When we talk about RACI metrics, we're talking about you coming up with it's the RASI metric in most cases reflects in the resources, your human resources especially, right? Human resources in the activities of your project. You ask yourself, who is responsible for what, right? In each of the activities, somebody has to be responsible, because if nobody is responsible, then the project will just be running on autopilot. And a project that runs on autopilot is bound to fail, right? The likelihood of failure is 99%. So in RASI metrics, you design who is responsible for what, who is accountable, right? Who is to be consulted? Who do we consult for A, B, C, and D of your project, right? And in consultation, again, also you ask yourself, who should be informed? So in RASI, we're talking about responsibility, accountability, consultation, and what? Information. So that's what RASI implies, right? So it is the who. Other place, we're just talking about the human resources of your project. Who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who should be informed for each task, right? So basically, that's what you look at that place. And this needs to be documented. This needs to be documented as important in your project. And then we have the WBS, right? Your work breakdown structure. I suppose Max dwelt on this tool yesterday and the day before, right? You must have a work breakdown structure. It must be organized. It must be manageable. And your work breakdown structure must be smart, right? At every instance, smart is the key, right? Simplicity is the key. Don't complicate anything when it comes to your work breakdown structure. Don't complicate it. Make it as simple as possible. Make it as relatable as possible. Make it as manageable as possible, right? And make it as realistic as possible, right? And it must also be within what? A particular time frame. The entirety of the project is within a particular time frame. And that also applies to your work breakdown structure. There has to be manageable section. Your work breakdown structure also, you see, everything in your documentation are aligned together. That you know already, right? It must be aligned, right? Every session is manageable and somebody is responsible for it. So we know that, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do in the first 2 days, or in the first 10 days, or in the first 10 weeks. This is what we need to do. This is how we need to do it, and the like. So there has to be a breakdown of what you need to do. There has to be a time schedule for everything, right? All these things are reflected in what? In your work breakdown structure. These are the things we need to do. This is how we must do them. And then project communication plans. I cannot overemphasize this. I've said this over and over again today. And then there has to also be issues, risks and issue logs, right? Or what we refer to as risks, assumption, issue, and dependency. That has to come up in our discussion of why we need a project documentation. This is the reason most people come up with as a reason why the project needs to be documented. You document your risks and the issues, the risks, what happened, what transpired. You document how it was resolved. If it was not resolved, you document why it was not resolved. And if it was resolved, how it was resolved. The success as well as the failure. This is where you discuss that document. That document is important it's an essential document in your project, the risks and issue log. That is very, very important. And then the change request management. Here you track additional deliverables, right? Like we said, it is possible for you to say, this is what you want to do at the beginning of your project. But in the course of the project, when you get to the field, you realize that things are not the way, and in most cases, things are not always the way you think it will be when you start the project, right? So there has to be a change request management, in the sense that there has to be a documentation whereby you document the alterations that happen within your project. What are the things that has changed in the execution of your project? What are the agreed upon deliverables? What are the deliverables that have been achieved, and what are the new directions that we need to follow. These are important. It's an important section, documents in your project, and then the project schedule, who determines the works to be done and when the work should be done. These are also important. These are just essentials that we need to be aware that are required in the course of our project. Again, when it comes to the documentation phases, the project documentation phases, these are the reports, the documents that we need at each phase. Remember, we have raised this already in the beginning. What the documents that are needed in your initiations phase, document needed in the planning phase, document needed in the execution phase, in control, and then in closure. These are the things which are required. In the initiation phase, the visibility report is required. The project charter, which your project proposal, the visibility report and the project charter is required at the initiation phase, right? At the planning phase, you need requirement specification, design documents, work plan, and estimate. This is what you need at the planning phase. This is what you need to have put out at the planning phase. At the execution phase, these are the things you need. Traceability metrics, right? Traceability metrics is what you need at that space. We must be able to review our project in relation to what we are planning to do, and that's the objective and what we have achieved, which is our deliverable. We must be able to look at it between the milestones and deliverable. Issue tracker at that point, it goes back to that the discourse on the risks and issue log, as well as the milestones, for you to have observed the milestones and the like. So this is what happens in your execution. That is where the whole the cruise of your project is. This is important at this phase. And then the control phase 2 is also important. The change of management, test documentation, we have discussed all this. And then when it comes to closure, the documents that are needed in your closure phase, some of these documents are what is there: the technical documents, the functional documents, user manual, transition and rollout plan, handover documents, contract closure, lesson length, and the like. So these are what's required at all these phases. So it's important for us to familiarize ourselves with this. And like I said, these are not exhaustive. You can come up with more stuff that you need at each phase, right? So when it comes to all these things now, I don't think I should pick them one after the other and start explaining what they are. I've done most of these things already, and these are just explanations. I'll be posting this slide on Moodle, and you can read up on some of these points. So I'm not going to just, I don't think I need to just talk on this. The details when it comes to all these things that we have raised here, the visibility reports, the project charter, the requirement specification, design documents, the work plan, traceability metrics, issue tracker, right? Change management documents, all these things I've explained. Your test documents, technical documents, functional documents, and user manual, right? Transition rollouts, all these ones are now at the closure phase. Transition rollout, handover documents, and contracts. So you can just read up on that and just familiarize yourself with these terminologies. They're just things that you're familiar with already, right? Okay, so quickly let's discuss some of these technologies that are required in your project. When we talk about project management, we look at project management, computerization, computerized systems, and software application. Remember, I told you when it comes to technology, you must determine the kind of technology you want to use, right? There are hardwares, there are softwares when it comes to computers and the likes. The hardwares are those physical things you can see, the physical components and the likes. Maybe we should play this video. Let's just see if we could just quickly watch I'm just going to share. I'm going to stop this. Let me stop this share, and then
Sell online and grow your business with Wix e-commerce. Create a beautiful
sorry, I think I did not share my system audio.
storefront for your brand by customizing.
I did not share my system audio, so you will not hear this. So let me do that.
We can hear it, sir.
You can hear it. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I'll just go back to it again. Okay, so this on hardware and software.
Hardware and software. Lofty goal. In this lesson, you will learn about computer hardware and software. Computers help us to do our work with ease, whether it is solving a difficult mathematical puzzle or it is writing a poem. Computers can be simple and they can be complex, but they are made of two components, hardware and software. Hardware. The physical parts of a computer are called hardware. You can see and touch all hardware parts. Hardware can be further classified as input device, processing device, and output device. Some hardware parts like keyboard, mouse, monitor, printer, speakers are visible outside the CPU box. Other hardware parts are present inside the CPU box like hard disk, CD drive, motherboard, SMPS, memory, etc. Hardware devices inside the CPU. CPU, hard disk, RAM, CD drive, SMPS, motherboard. Some more. SMPS, switched mode power supply, supplies power to all the devices present inside the computer. Hey Mighty, when I click on the start button, all programs and many more names are displayed. Good question. These are software installed in your computer. Software. Software is a set of instructions that tells hardware what to do. It is shown on the desktop in the form of an icon. You can neither touch nor feel a software. Types of software. There are two types of software: application software, system software. Some more. You can create an icon on the desktop for any program you want. Application software. Application software programs are designed for specific purposes. Some commonly used application software are given below. Paint is a software used for drawing and coloring pictures. Adobe Photoshop is used for creating and editing pictures. MS Word is a word processor software used for writing and editing text. Windows Media Player is a software used for watching movies. System software. System software runs the application software. System software controls and manages your computer. When you start your computer, the first software to run is a system software called Operating System OS. Now, Windows 7 is the most popular operating system. Windows 8 is the latest operating system. Which one is correct?
Okay.
Google Digital Skills for Africa offers over 40 free online courses.
Sorry.
Learn new skills such as
The fundamentals of digital marketing to boost.
I need to stop the. Okay. For us, what we are concerned with. I know you guys are already familiar with what's it called now? You're familiar with the hardware. So at this point, I cannot start telling you what is hardware, what is software, and all that. What is hardware, what is software, and all that. But what we are concerned with for this class, I'm trying to hold that mixed it up. 1 minute, please. I want to start the slides from current view. Okay, good. Okay. Okay. We are familiar with when it comes to system, my project management control system and software applications. In most cases, we are familiar with the hardware. We see these things every day. Our phones, our computer, our tablets, and the like. These are hardwares, right? So we are familiar with all these things. But for project documentation, we are more concerned with the software, the system software, right? That's what we are more concerned with. We are concerned with the software, the application software as well as the system software. That's what we are concerned with. And in documentation, in project documentation, these are essential. And like I've raised initially, when I stated that when it comes to technology, you must be familiar with the technology you want to use. You will notice from the video we just played now, application softwares are shown and the different use, the specific use of this application software were also indicated, right? So the same thing applies. These are very important when it comes to project documentation. Like I said, the software you need to use and why you need to use it and when you need to use it must be clear so that you don't abuse some of these software. And the ones you don't have expertise in, you need to find who has expertise on all these things. But there are basic stuff in which you need to know, or you need to have at least an add-on knowledge of how it operates. You may not have an expertise knowledge of it, but as the project manager, you should have an idea. And that's what we want to discuss here. If you can know better in those softwares, perfect. But if not, at least have an idea, right? Okay. So when it comes to the project management software, there are a lot of things a lot of advantage the project management software is for. And then first we said it helps us provide summary and the project data summary. You can actually do a summary of the project using this software, different software which we will itemize, right? You'll be able to talk about the expenditure, the timing, the activity. You can, for instance, now when it comes to the discourse on summary, you can design a chart, right? An organogram that explains the entirety of your project just in a single page, right? For instance, when we're discussing your RASI, for instance, your responsibility, who is responsible for who do we communicate to? You discover that in each organization, for instance, there is always an organogram, and I believe Mark discussed this with you in the last class. There's always an organogram that explains who is who, and in most of these public offices, when you go there, you will see it there, right? You'll say, okay, this is the principal, this is who is the deputy, this is who are under who and all that, right? If you, for instance, let's use the example of the university as an example. When it comes to university as an organization, you are familiar with the fact that there's going to be the VC. Then under the VC, there is the DVC, DVC academies, DVC research, DVC this and that. And then under that, you see different positions under them. So you see, we can design that, and that design is easy using a particular application software, right? Or when it comes to your budgeting too, you can actually design, give a summary of your budget using a particular application software, like the Excel, for instance. You can design that. So that is what the software is used for. Like we said, it's also used to come up with the project management and business graphics capabilities. The software can do that. Data management and reporting, right? You can easily use this software to report the events as it happens in your project, from the initiation to the closure phase. You can also manage those data easily from initiation to the closure phase when you use this particular software, right? Okay, we'll talk about critical path analysis, right? Customized and standard reporting format. All these things are things you can do on the software. Multi-project tracking, sub-networking, impact analysis, right? The what if, right? This you can do. You can even project. There are software that are available for you to project, to say, okay, if you do A, B, C, and D, this is our projection. You can come up with those projections. When you want to do your risk analysis, there are software that can help you on this impact analysis, right? That you can do you can project on it. The software there are software also that are available for early warning systems, online analysis, graphical presentation of both your budget constraint, graphical presentation of that, your cost, your time, your activity, and the likes, resource planning, cost analysis, multiple calendars, right, for different events. Because, for instance, when it comes to your project milestone, we are familiar with the fact that there are projects that within the project itself, there are milestones, there are activities that run parallel to each other. It is not all projects that you have a situation whereby you do one activity at a time until the end of one activity, then you now start this other activity, right?
Also, but
okay. Thank you very much. It's an indication that you are not in this class. You're having another session on your own, right? Okay. Please, as much as possible, I hope you listen to this recording at the end of the day and be involved, right? Okay, so these are some of the things in which you do. What was I saying? I was talking about multiple calendar, for instance. We're saying that there are cases whereby projects, there are different activities that run parallel to each other, right? So when you have projects like that, you have software that can actually provide the timeline for each of these projects, and they run parallel to each other, and the like. So these are some of the things that your software is available for, right? These are things in which we are familiar with. Some of us are already using them, so we know. And then when it comes to your documentation, your software documentation, these are things in which you should be familiar with. When we discuss that, your software documentation basically has two types. There's a product documentation and there's a process documentation, right? When it comes to documentation, there's product documentation and there is process documentation. So let's discuss the products, right? When we talk about products, right, we're talking about what's the word now? The deliverables itself. Let me use that word, the deliverables itself, right? That is the product, what you intend to achieve. I want to talk about process. We're talking about what? How you intend to achieve what you intend to achieve. Does that make sense? Hello, people?
Yes, it
Yes,
makes
sir.
sense.
Okay. So basically that's what it implies. Your product is what you want to achieve. Your process is how you intend to achieve what you want to achieve. So when it comes to those system documentation, software documentation, these are the two broad categories. And then in these two broad categories, when we talk about the product, you see that it is also divided into what? The systems documentation and the user documentation. In the system documentation, you talk about requirement documentation, design and architecture, source code, validation and verification and testing, maintenance, or help guide. This is what you do in this aspect. And when it comes to the users documentation, you're talking about the end users manual and then the system administrator. These are what you are worried about there. And when it goes to the other aspect of process documentation, I talk about the process documentation. In that place, you're looking at, you're documenting your plans, the estimates, the schedules, the reports, your work business, your working papers, the standard, and all the likes. So these are the things in which you do under the process. In process, I think the most important thing you need to get in this space is that in process, you are documenting the how. In product, you are documenting the what itself, right? So basically, that's what you do in this space. And then some of the softwares in which you will use, right? When it comes to what's it called now? When it comes to a budget, for instance, right? How do you use Excel to design your budget? These videos are already on Moodle. So I will encourage you guys to look into this video and have an idea on how to use these things. I suppose some of you already know how to use Excel to come up with simple budgeting, right? How do you do that? And then how do you use Excel in itself, right? These are some of the things in which you should be familiar with. So I'm just going to play around that for a while, and then we move along. And like I said, this again we will discuss in the forum. And I'm going to post a question as relating to the use of this in the forum. How do you, I'm going to be asking you to design a budget for a choice project of yours. How do you come up with a budget of a choice project, right? So that's what we'll do in the discussion in the forum. So you will do this. So quickly, I'm going to just play around the use of Excel, for instance, right? I'm just going to play around it. I'm just going to share my screen as relating to the use of Excel. And then we'll just do this, and then we end the class in this ground, right? Now, I don't think I want to start like this. I'm going to close it. I want to start from the beginning of it, right? We are familiar with the fact that, or better still, let me share my screen this time. Let me share the entirety of my screen so that we'll pick it up from the beginning. Okay, so when it comes to just the basic now, I'm just going to use Excel as the only document I want to play around for us to continue. So when it comes to the use of Excel, all right, there are different formats we can use, right? So first, in designing your projects, especially when it comes to your budgets, this is key to designing your budget. And in this place now, because you can come up with multiple sheets, this is sheet 1, you can come up with multiple sheets. It is possible for you to it is possible for you to practically put in different budgets, different aspects of your activity, and the budget for different aspects of your activity. In most cases, your first page will almost always be renamed as the summary of your budget, whereby all the activities in your budget, in the entirety of the budget, will be reflected in the first page. But in subsequent pages, right, we may say in this place now, activity 1, you're able to tell us the items that are required, the activities, the items in each, the items that are required, the unit cost of each item, and the total cost of that particular item. Let's say in activity A, right? And then you have the numbering system here, the numbering system. We are familiar with the fact that they're just basic things to be familiar with here. When it comes to, let's say, numbering now, you know that when you do 1 and 2, instead of going 3, 4, 5, 6, and all and all that, you don't need that when you want to do numbering, for instance, right? When you have your items here now, we are familiar with the fact that if I press my shift key and I light both 1 and 2, if I light both 1 and 2 and I put my cursor just at the tip of this place, I can put numbers to my items, right? And this can go till infinity, right? So these are basic things in which we are familiar with when we do this. This is just for numbering. When it comes to multiply items, maybe for instance, maybe we have item 1, maybe let's say in our budgets for crop, maybe we have to provide salary for personnel, the salary for the people we use, right? Salary, unit cost. In most cases, okay. In most cases, where even before you come up with unit cost and items, you may want to explain why, right? Explanation for why the item is needed. Explanation for why the item is needed and the likes. But the point I just want to raise here is, okay, now we may come up with particular costs, let's say 5, 10, right? Let's say 200, 250. I'm just randomly putting numbers, right? If numbers are like this now, and let me just stop here. I'm deleting all this one, right? Let's assume that this is where we have our total. It's just playing around these things. We are familiar with the fact that when it comes to a simple multiplication, I don't need to look for calculator to add up all these things. This can add up itself, right? All I need to do is just to come here and go on the formula and do the sum, the equals to sum, right? Brackets, I can add from K18, right, to K1, K13, right? And then I close bracket and I add. It's going to sum up the entirety of these things and all that. These are just basic, simple budgets calculation on Excel and all that. In a big budget, you are able to do all these things. And the same thing can also apply if I'm adding up some items that are direct, right? If for instance, I have items like this and I want to sum them up, the same thing also apply, right? Equals to sum, right? This to this. And then we enter like that. So these are just basic things in which you should be familiar with the basic use of this thing. If you want to divide these things by percentage, you can divide them, right? The same thing, you go to the formula, right? And you do the same. So these are just basic stuff you should be familiar with. Or better still, like, I guess it would be nice if we can just, let's see if we could just play this video. Oh no, let's use the simple budget on Excel. Let's just play this video. So these are some of the things we just need to be familiar with.
We can't manage work like this. That's why I use Monday.com. My team uses it to manage projects, sales, recruitment.
Everything. Who the hell are you? I'm you. 1 minute into the future. What happened to you? Check this out. You put everything your
team is working on here.
Okay.
For this screencast, I'll demonstrate how to set up a simple budget in a computer spreadsheet. In this case, we'll be using Microsoft Excel 2010. Let's create an example of a yearly budget. So let's go ahead and click at the top left and start with gross income. And below that, let's list the value. I'll list the sample value of 35,000. We'll go ahead and click back on the mark there and list this as an accounting number. And we'll do that throughout the spreadsheet. Okay, let's list some sample expenses. So we'll list them out first before we put the values. So rent, gas and car, food, utilities, cable and internet. And we'll expand the column here just by dragging this over and put our values here. So 400, 120, 400 for food, utilities, 120, cable and internet. And you can continue the list down. Okay, let's select these and also select accounting for the value and expand the column so they can all fit. And what we'll do now is look at the monthly total. So we can write that out. And click on this box, click the equal sign, then start writing sum, S-U-M, put an open bracket, select the cells, close the bracket, hit enter. So that's the monthly total of the expenses. Now what we can do is if we want to look at our yearly total, we can click over here and set up an equation for finding what that is for the year. So we can hit the equal sign, click on the value of the monthly total, and hit Shift 8 for the multiplication symbol, and then multiply the monthly total by 12, and that will give us the yearly total. Now what we can do is we can see how much excess income we have. And let's expand this column as well. So what we can do, we can hit the equal sign, click on gross income, and subtract at the minus sign, subtract the yearly total, and that will give us our excess. Now let's say that we actually had more expenses. We can right click on the row that we need to insert a line, and we can hit insert, and let's do that a couple spaces here. Let's put giving, charitable giving is 350 per month, and you can see it automatically updates. And then giving, we can also put clothing. Let's say that was 150, hit enter. And what Excel will do is automatically include that into your monthly total Also, it'll update your yearly total because this column is included within this, or this box is included within this. And then also take care of it here. Now, if it doesn't do that, what you'd have to do is click on the formula bar and adjust which ones that you want to be included. For instance, let's say we just had that. Then we'd have to have that. Or if it didn't include it automatically, you could just drag it over all of them, hit enter, and it'll update it. Thanks for watching.
I was eating because I was stressed out, candy bars and chips and donuts.
Okay. Like the video just showed you now, these are just basic, right? These are basic things to be familiar with when it comes to your simple budgeting. And one thing I feel I did not remember to raise, and the video has raised it, is the fact that by the time you do all these summations, they can actually update themselves. If for any reason I increase this one to 500, right, it will update itself in the total. Let me put this one as bold, right? It will update itself in the total. Anything I do here, if I input this one as 700, you see the total will change from 16 to 2.1, right? 2116. So that's basically what happens with this one. So what I've done here was that I've shown you the way to do the addition, right? The way to do numbering, right? And like they show in the video, if you have to multiply or minus, the same thing applies, right? For instance, now if I want to minus this from this, right? Or I want to multiply this and this, I can just come here and do the same thing, equal sign, and then I will say this multiply by this. The implication is that when you click on this, it is K, it is in the column of K, right? K15, right? While this one is in the column of M18, right? By the time I do that, it gives me the multiplication, right? So if any reason, if I change any figure between this and this, it will also change in this place. So you see, if I decide to change this one to 10, right? You see, it changes to 130, right? So basically, these are just simple things in which you can actually work on and come up with, right? These are basic stuff you can work on. So you do this, and then your budget is set. So this is for your budgeting, right? You will not want to use this when you are doing a different reporting and the like. So basically, these are some of the things in which you should. Yes, you're saying something? Are you saying something? Okay. Okay, like I said, these are things in which you should be familiar with when it comes to your documentation. So please look up on the videos that are on the slide, and I've posted those videos also on Moodle. Look up on them and play around these videos and just get yourself familiar with them. So basically, these are the things that are expected when we do our project documentation. Like I said, this is essential. Your project documentation is essential for the success of your project. It's essential for the success of your project, and it's essential for the success of subsequent projects after yours. So basically, that's that. Any question? Any question? Are you guys still with me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm done with the stuff I want to share for today. So if there are questions, please raise it. Otherwise, we can call it the end of the day. Any question? So everything we've raised today, I suppose they are clear.
Yes, sir. On my side was clear, but it's still too much work. We still need to go back and read. It's not something that we can grab in one day.
Yeah. That's correct, actually. There's a lot of information that we are bombarding you guys with in the space of 1 week. Like we said, this is something people do for the entirety of a semester, right? And then we are doing it in 1 day. This documentation now should take us at least a whole week to talk about it. We should do this for 1 week or for 2 weeks. We bring it piece by piece. This one that we're just doing haphazardly, especially like this budget, for instance, now, it should be something that will take our time, spend hours on. This should take us a whole day to discuss how to design a budget, right? It should take us a whole day, but this is what we just discussed in few hours. So yes, I understand the challenge, but the videos are recorded. I'll post them also on Moodle, so you can go back to these things and just try to remind yourself some of these things. And yes, we are only trusting the fact that, okay, some of these things you are familiar with already, because you're already on the field. Most of you are on the field, so you are familiar with these things. We're just giving you the theory aspect of it. So by the time you link it up with your experience, I suppose you should be fine at the end of the day. Again, let me please remind us, please write your name and student number on the comment section. Don't forget to do that. Your name and student number on the comment section. That is how we know you are in this class. That's where I'm going to pick the attendance from. And like I said, I'm going to create a discussion forum on Moodle. I'll raise a question of which all of us need to contribute. Just come and tell us your own opinion as relating to that. So I'm going to raise that on Moodle going forward. Okay. And the assignments I told you about on Monday, I have posted it on Moodle already, and you can start submitting once you are done with the assignment. I want to believe that you should have started the assignment, not necessarily finished the assignment, but you should have started the assignment in the sense that you already have an idea of the project you want to do. And you have an idea of the project you want to use as your example. And you should start working on it. I put the format that you should use in doing that, or an ideal format. It is not expected that you should use it. If you don't want to use that format, it's also fine. That is not the only format in the world. I just gave you an ideal guidance on what you need to do, but ensure that you put in the necessary stuff you need to do, right? Okay. Any question, any contribution before we end the class?
No, nothing, sir. Thank you.
Okay. It's all right then. Is the class rep in this session?
Maybe we are all fine because everyone is quiet, or unless they are away.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we are fine. We are fine though.
Okay, that's okay, that's beautiful then. Please make sure you go look back on this thing. You cannot get them once. That is understandable. Okay, so I will see you guys on Monday, same time. Is that fine? 9 o'clock on
Yes,
Monday.
it's fine.
Yes, let us meet again on Monday.
Okay.
Around.
Thank you.
I want to be discussing projects, monitoring and evaluation. So please read up on monitoring and evaluation, because on Monday I want us to have more discussion. Okay, so thank you very much. See you when we see again.
Okay.
Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you.